I'm speaking to you from the National Physical Laboratories Teddington site, where I've got a much better internet connection than I could ever get at home. But we will be getting an announcement at some stage saying that it's time to leave the building. So I'll hit the mute button rapidly when that happens. So if I suddenly go mute, then you'll know what's going on there. Right. So the presentation is we're going to be talking about software quality management at the National Physical Laboratory, really why these things are just so important to us and why we take it seriously. And as I say, this will be a joint presentation with my colleague Indu, who is a full-time quality lead, quality manager for software quality management, and that's a really important innovation that we just undertaken relatively recently, and that is a very important thing that we're doing here. So we'll just talk a little bit. We'll begin. So here's the contents of the presentation. We'll just begin just giving a little bit of biographical details about ourselves and explain, our approach to these things, because we have two complementary, but actually reasonably different approaches to this subject, or where we're coming from. So just a little explanation about that. I'll then just let you know some of the things that I'm hoping to get over this evening. A little bit more details about NPL. Don't know how familiar you are with NPL, and we'll also be talking about our data science department and the work we're doing in that. There's an example of, well, we all know software quality is really important. We wouldn't be here otherwise, but this is an example of its increasing importance, which is, of course, the redefinition of the System International, the SI metric, which was redefined in 2019, and that was a really, really important moment that I hope you're familiar with, at least many of you, and that's a pretty important thing. So I'll be talking a little bit about that. We'll then be going into giving an overview of our quality management system. I'll talk a little bit about TickITplus, which is the scheme that we use for certifying our software quality management procedures. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of having an external assessor, someone from outside of the organization coming in, looking at what you're doing. I'll explain why this is something that we feel to be really important and really helpful. And then we'll just be finishing with some final thoughts and, the next steps, how we plan to take these certification schemes forward, how we're going to do all of that. So begin very, very quickly. I'm Keith Lyons. I work in the data science department at NPL. I've been at NPL just over 30 years now, largely in a variety of IT, of computing, IT roles, doing a lot of software development over the years, working with the scientists, and of course, software quality, absolutely key. So it's been a great interest of mine for many years, in top of the other software development work that I've been doing. So, inside knowledge of the scientists, what they're up to, how it can be applied to them. That's really my approach to things. And Indu, would you?
Yeah, thank you, Keith. So I'm Indu George. I joined NPL in June this year, and I have around 20 years of experience. And I started my career as a software engineer. Did a lot of coding and application development over years, and later moved to quality and process. I worked with different domains, and the last project I was with Jaguar and Land Rover for the automotive domain. Again, quality process. I'm happy to be with the NPL to work with the quality department and the data science department. Yeah, thank you.
So thanks, Indu. So that's sort of really good. So I've got one dimension in terms of my time at NPL, and Indu's bringing in sort of the expertise from industry and the other things to apply. So I think that's a pretty good combination, I think. So let's talk some about the aims, some things I'm hoping to be getting over this evening. Really, the brief was to update a presentation that I gave with my colleague Ewan from the QA team in 2016 as part of the BCS SQM conference. This was we were really talking about TickITplus and transitioning to it. So I was asked to give an update. I'm not expecting you to have read the paper or be familiar with that presentation. That would be a bit unreasonable to expect, but we're going to be updating that and talking a little bit more about software quality management and why it's important. and also about why certification schemes, accreditation, certification, this is an absolutely key thing to MPL and the work that we do. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that. The benefits of external assessment, perhaps hopefully we can stimulate a little bit of discussion, get some talk going, maybe either perhaps after the presentation, so that perhaps will be helpful. And maybe this will be of use to anyone perhaps considering TickITplus or any other sort of certification scheme for their software quality management issues. This is going to be an overview, this presentation. I know if people like Tom Gilb, he were on the line, he would be expecting, you know, quite rightly, graphs, numbers. Before TickITplus, we had these issues, we had this number of issues. With this application, we now have that number of issues. Those sorts of talks, that would indeed be a very nice talk to give one day, but that's not what I'm going to be presenting this evening. I'm going to be more talking about generalities, overviews, things like that. I'm going to assume I've got an audience who is familiar with quality management systems, auditing, ISO 9000, all of that stuff. I've been advised that I should not assume that you're familiar with TickITplus. So I've got a little bit of an appendix at the back of this presentation about that. So at the right stage, I'll just whiz to the back of that and maybe just talk a little bit, give you a little bit of information about TickITplus as we go along. So next stage, a little bit about the National Physical Laboratory. We are the UK's National Metrology Institute, metrology being the science of measurement, so it can be a National Measurement Institute as well. About 9,000, my goodness, about 900 staff, 200 visiting researchers. One innovation that's taken over a lot since I last, since the 2016 presentation, is that we're spreading ourselves out more between the UK. We're obviously our main site, our main hub is still here in Teddington, but now we have sites in Cambridge, Glasgow, Huddersfield. You know, we are moving throughout the whole UK and having sites there. So what do we mean National Measurement Institute? I used to explain it as we have the UK's copy of the kilogram. That's a little bit more complicated these days, as I will explain further on in the talk. But suffice to say, measurement standards, here we are. We're at the heart of the UK National Measurement System. Calibrations, things like that. For calibrations, we maintain the standards required for things like calibration. So here, as you can see in this slide, is a typical example of the sort of thing that's going on. We calibrate, we do the calibrations, which are then spread throughout the country. UCAS accredited labs, United Kingdom Accreditation Services labs, they then use their calibrations in a calibration chain heading straight back to us, ultimately using calibrations which go out to industry. And this is why these accreditation schemes, such as the United Kingdom Accreditation Service, which accredits calibration and testing laboratories, why these schemes are very important to us. The labs, the organisations, they must, have to make sure that their equipment is properly calibrated and traceable. And these accreditation schemes are absolutely key in making sure that these things happen, that these take place. So there we are. And of course, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with, the absolutely key role that the National Physical Laboratory had in creating computing as we know the subject today. I mean, how important are digital computers to MPL? We created one of the first in the world, but they didn't exist. The Pilot Ace, with of course including the amazing work of Alan Turing. There we are, there's a picture of the Pilot Ace. We were also key in computer networks. The internet, Donald Davies, you can see there. I believe he was the one who coined the phrase packet switching, which is of course the technology that absolutely underpins the internet. MPL was key in developing this technology. And so there again, there's just an example of one of our computers, and the woman with the fair hair just on the right is Joyce Brick, who was MPL's original quality manager. So I don't know if Joyce might be known to some of you over the years, but Joyce was our very first, MPL's very first quality manager. A digital NMI, obviously as the world is going digital, MPL is very keen to place itself as, digital technologies at the heart of what we do. And of course, software quality is more important than ever. So what do we mean by digital NMI? The best use of computers and data. Data is key, obviously. Collected, stored and shared in digital form, digital calibration certificates, digital information going to our customers rather than say paper certificates. This is really at the key of what MPL is hoping to achieve, you know, both in its core role as a national measurement institute and of course as a research institute. There's a lot of research going on, new methods of measurement, new ways of doing things, innovations happening all the time. Shortened traceability chains, that is a very important point that I'll be going over and giving an example of soon, because again, going back to the previous slide, there's all these calibrations, all these traceability. Uncertainty is associated with each one of those calibrations. The shorter that chain can be, the less uncertainties, the more accurate the measurements, even better. Digital NMI, software quality, absolutely at the heart of that. And it said richer, more detailed information to our partners and customers, rather than just say a piece of paper, a certificate, something digital, AP information that way, so that we can go into far greater detail. And you know, all the benefits that digital technologies can bring. So next. And the point that software quality management is more important than ever. So the data science department, well, when I last spoke to you, I was a member of a mathematics and modeling division, but now I'm a member of a data science department, which was founded about 2016. It's the main aim is, and if our mission statement can be summed up in one sentence, it's confidence in the intelligence and effective use of data. And the department is, it says there, it's a mix of mathematicians, computer scientists, statisticians, and I am very, very glad to say QA specialists. QA is really important to what MPL does and what we do in data science, absolutely key. So there's around 40 staff, probably a little bit more than that now. It's across 3 of the sites, one at Cambridge, some at the University of Surrey, and some at the University of Strathclyde. We also have PhD students working with us, sometimes as industrial supervisors, sometimes on sandwich courses or industrial supervision, sandwich courses, that sort of thing. And of course, collaboration is key. You can't do data science without data. Within our fellow scientists, within the organization, our fellow national measurement institutes throughout the world, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the US NMI, the PTB, the German NMI, VSL, the Dutch NMI, throughout Europe, throughout the world. Companies, outside companies, we work with a variety of organizations, larger, but within healthcare, within utilities, large organizations, small to medium enterprises within, say, space sciences, something like that. A really exciting variety of organizations covering a huge range of topics. Academia, and of course, it's a segment industry, UK and worldwide. The universities, we do a lot with the universities these days. And this is, roughly speaking, well, this is how the group is structured. We have an analytics and modeling section, an informatics section, and a digital manufacturing section. Analytics and modeling is really sort of an extension of the maths and modeling group. Again, time series, uncertainty quantification, machine learning, validation of machine learning, trustworthy machine learning, absolutely important key subject to us these days. There's an informatics section looking at things like ontologies, data quality assurance, that's again absolutely key, and databases, data quality assurance, and of course digital manufacturing. We're getting out there, we're applying these things to industry, and that's really a very key thing that it's all about. So those are the 3 sections in which the data science department is divided into. And there we are, just showing that we're spread throughout the UK. There's Surrey there as well, but Teddington, Cambridge, that's where a lot of our informatics staff are there, working with the basically University of Cambridge and the organisations based there. And then up there in Glasgow at the University of Strathclyde, with the organisations and the industry based up there. So I did mention that I was going to be talking about an example of shortening traceability chains and how and the key role that that software quality management has in that. Now, again, as I say, back before May 2019, how I would explain what MPL does is we have the UK's copy of the kilogram. So there is really an example of a much simplified traceability chain. Not a so there we are. There's a retailer. You're buying some food there. Kilogram of potatoes. Ultimately, we have a traceability chain that goes all the way to the international prototype kilogram at the Institute of Weights and Measures in Paris, BIPM. That was they hold, to extent still do, hold the international prototype kilogram, a cylinder of metal that was the kilogram. It was the kilogram because we said it was. Zero uncertainty. As it lost mass and gained mass, so the kilogram lost and gained mass. These are the sorts of situations that can be a problem. So there we are. There's the chain. Associated uncertainties. A lot of software needed there to be able to calculate these things. But as from May 2019, the SI was redefined. And one of the implications of that was that the kilogram is now in the UK realized using a very complex cyber physical system called the kibble balance. I don't propose to go into the finer points of that in this evening's talk, but let's just say, just my point being that we've gone from a cylinder of metal and a lot of software required for the traceability chains in order to make that work. But now we have a kibble balance, a device, complex cyber physical software absolutely at the heart of it. And here's the thing, it's almost an analogy here with computers. It's not going to be the case that there will be the kibble balance for the UK. There will be the one device. The vision is ultimately that there will be lots of devices, micro kibble balances that can be used within weighing devices at customer site. Traceability taken straight to the point of use. The kibble and micro kibble balance there. Perhaps communicating with other kibble balances, into comparisons, talking to each other over the internet. That's the vision. That's how the direction that things are going. Shortening the traceability chain means that there we are. You've got fewer uncertainties. Software quality management is, again, more important than ever. Now, why is shortening this traceability chain so absolutely key? Well, I mean, if looking at the previous example, you're talking about the tiniest slither, the tiniest slice of potato or carrot or something like that. It's not really a concern. But what if you're doing things like you're fabricating devices about the nanoscale, fabricating devices at the nanoscale? What then if you're looking at a cylinder of metal that could lose or gain mass? That's not really what's needed. What if you're looking at uncertainties that could have a real effect on the very, very tiny masses that you're looking at? This is really not what's needed. And that's why we've got this redefinition. That's why we've got this new approach, this new way of doing things, and traceability at the point of use. This will be the key to unlock future generations, unlocking technologies that right now we can't even dream of, in the same way that the redefinition of the second back in the 50s, 60s, led on to the internet, GPS, all that kind of stuff. This is really exciting, really important stuff. Software quality management, absolutely key, absolutely key. Perhaps a step change in how important that it is. So really, that's where we are as far as MPL, why software quality management is important to us, what we do, the SI redefinition, an example of that. And that's where we've got to. So what we'll move on to next is we'll talk a little bit about our quality management system, talk a little bit about TickITplus and see what the approach is there. Well, our quality management system is approved by Lloyd's Register to ISO 9001:2015 and TickITplus Foundation level, which I'll be talking about in a little bit more detail in a minute. We also have obviously our measurement, our calibration and testing services are also UCAS accredited. In fact, as I hope some of you are aware, MPL had a key role in founding UCAS. One of the organisations that went on to create UCAS was the National Measurement Accreditation Service, which was a division of MPL where I worked for a couple of years. So there we go. We've held TickIT, which was a predecessor to TickITplus certification, ever since MPL first achieved ISO 9001 certification back in 1996, which again would make the task of, say, showing, well, these were the issues before TickITplus, here are the issues afterwards, because we're now talking about, well, quite a long time ago now. I'm still kind of living with the denial that the early to mid 90s was quite a long time ago, but I know that's not really the case. But you know, that makes that job difficult. We transitioned to the scheme which superseded TickITplus in 2014, and we are audited externally by Lloyd's Register every 6 months. And that's a point, we're still at foundation level. What's all that about? I'll talk about that in a minute. Why do, again, let's talk a little bit more why we really take this sort of stuff and love this stuff and take it seriously. Traceability and accountability. Where if you're going to present a number, whether that number is a customer's artifact that's being calibrated, whether or not that's the amount of a project budget available over a particular period of time, things like that. You've got to be able to show your working, show where it came from, where's the source data, how was it calculated, what's the software that did it. And as we say to staff who we brief about this, if you're the sort of person who's kind of relaxed about that sort of thing, where those numbers come from, not too sure about things like that, then no, you're not working in the right place if you're working at a National Measurement Institute. Transferability. You could be running a measurement service, doing some particular task for many, many years, very familiar with the software, help develop the software. You know a lot about it, but then perhaps you move on to something else, you retire, someone else has to take this over. It's got to be easy to do, or at least doable without not too much effort or too much scope for problems. This is where transferability comes in. Maintenance, almost needless to say. Remembering how a documented piece of code works is easier than trying to remember how an undocumented piece of code works. How many times have you done something out there, written something, come back to it 6 months later and thought, what on earth was all that about? This is where software quality management comes in and is so very helpful. Now, I've got a really nice quote here that I think that really summarizes the approach that we need to take in an organization somewhere like the National Physical Laboratory, say, rather than a software house where there's pretty strict rules as to how you approach these things. As it says there, an approach to software quality management perceived as excessively bureaucratic and liable to stifle innovation will not succeed within a community of independently minded scientists. And it should appear not too onerous to those who may not necessarily consider themselves to be software developers. Great quote. Bit egotistical, unfortunately, because that's a quote from the paper that Ewan and myself wrote back in 2016, but that still doesn't mean it's not valid. Yep, so the approach to software quality management is a little bit, the principles are the same, but the approach is arguably a little bit different from in an organization like MPL, because we're not talking about large teams of developers spread across the world, developing apps and things like that that are going to be spread out to thousands of users. That's largely not the sort of thing we're talking about. It could be teams are typically 1 or 2, maybe 3 people. We're not talking about daily agile scrums or anything like that, but it brings its issues. Someone might have a particularly, shall we say, unique programming style that might make making sense of things a little bit more challenging, and that's why software quality management reviews, internal reviews, even if it's just getting a colleague to cast their eye over it and just see and just have a look at it, that these things are important. The user and the developer in the research, particularly in a research development, so research environment, that user and that developer, that could be the same person. What do you do in that case? And who's the customer? Who's the customer of the research project? Is it the person in the body that's funding it, the contact person in the body that's funding it? Is it perhaps someone within the organization who's acting as a proxy for an external customer. These are the sorts of issues that you need to think about. And move to the next slide. I'm wondering if at this stage it might be useful just to whiz forward a little bit and just mention a bit about how are we doing for time, by the way, Margaret?
No, I think coming up 25 minutes past, so you should be all right.
Okay, that's good. Let us know. So excuse me, I'll just whiz through here. Bit of a preview, right? Let's go. Let's talk a little bit about TickITplus. I'll go right the way back to the beginning. There we are. Excuse me. The best way, I think, to introduce TickITplus is just to consider its predecessor scheme, TickIT. And what TickIT was all about, it was not so much about the organisation and the procedures being audited. It was all about the auditor. It was all about giving confidence that the person who was looking at this was indeed themselves a software specialist, an IT specialist, not necessarily a generalist looking at ISO 9001 more generally, but the aspects of your quality system that concern software development was going to be reviewed, audited by a specialist. It was a creation of the UK Department of Trade and Industry, as was, and I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised, as MPL was an executive agency of the Department of Trade and Industry at the time, whether or not we had a hand in creating TickIT, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, it was a creation of the UK Department of Trade and Industry and the Swedish Accreditation Service, launched in the early 90s, and in 2014 it was superseded by TickITplus. So again, procedure-based, that's how things worked in those days rather than the process-based approach to ISO 9001 that we have these days. And a key factor was that it covered software development. TickITplus has a wider scope and is bringing in other factors as well, such as IT security, IT help desk. It's almost like a sort of one-stop shop for all your IT certification needs. I should add that MPL, we're really still focusing on those aspects of the scheme that are looking at software development. So for us, it's almost a process-based version of the old TickIT scheme. That's how we're using it. But importantly, there's also a maturity model was brought into TickITplus, which allowed organizations to move up these various maturity models as we apply as the scheme itself becomes more mature, we meet the requirements of the higher levels. Foundation was a level that was brought in for organizations that transferred from the old TickITplus scheme, the old TickIT scheme rather. And there we are, scope profiles, as I was saying, information and management security, service management, all the others there you can see, but at MPL, we're really still focusing on systems and software development. So as I say, pardon me, just move back. 2 seconds. Let me just move back here. Oh dear. There it is, sorry. So 2014, TickIT superseded with TickITplus, and a limited period of transition was allowed to transfer from the old TickIT scheme into the TickITplus foundation level. Transition involved in assuming that the underlying quality management system, the procedures, the processes themselves were sound, and we're really just looking at as to how our existing procedures would map to this new scheme. A document called a process reference model. That's the absolute key document for TickITplus that links this scheme to the various processes and documents, things like ISO 9001 and how it links within the organization's quality management system. I won't go into detail on that at the moment. We don't really have the time. That's probably one for another talk. But process reference model, key document, mapping the quality system to that. was the activity that had to take place, and during transition that could be done assuming that the underlying quality management system was sound. Otherwise we had to go from first principles, weren't going to do that, so we transferred after having think about, you know, could this effort and expertise be justified? Did we want to continue with this certification? Yeah, or this certification, did we want to do that? Answer, yes we did. That's important. TickITplus consists of a library of a series of processes which you map to your organization's quality system. There is just a sample of them there. So I'll just leave that there. Project management, configuration and change management, that's an important one. So you're looking at things like version control. You know, have you, is it easy to find older versions of software? If the hardware's dying, can you go and find something without suddenly finding that you've got something that's got a horrendous bug in it that was fixed, but you couldn't find the version of the code, the source code that was correct? Managing those sorts of situations, and there we are. So there's an example of a base process, a TickITplus base process, which we've just looked at, and base processes themselves are built up from something called base practices, which map input work products to output products. And again, I won't go into too much detail about that because of time. But look, there is just an example of the sort of mapping that can take place. There's the change and configuration management base process, the outcome, the purpose, and there's the base practice, and ultimately the MPL procedures to which it maps, and the ISO 9001 clause. And yes, this is an out-of-date example. But there we are. I hope that just gets over the general principles and what the transition was and how we use it. So I will now quickly whiz back to where I was, and then we can continue as we were. So there we are, going back, no scrums. So the starting point, really, our approach to software quality management at MPL is very much a software quality plan. Each project, or perhaps piece of software, depending, sometimes the one plan for the entire project is useful. Sometimes different pieces of software within a project, different plans will be appropriate. But suffice to say, the beginning point is to consider factors such as the criticality of usage and its complexity. Is this something that's going to be used for a customer service? Is it going to be producing some of this really important digital data that these customers will be using to issue their own calibration certificates, do their own calibrations? Is this going to be perhaps a research paper? The worst that happened, that might be the paper might need to be redacted in case of any problems. Or is this just something internal? Are we, say, for example, taking a piece of hardware and saying, is it feasible to use this piece of hardware to be able to provide this measurement service? Something quick and dirty, say, written quickly, just so that we can have some more sensible, some more meaningful conversations about that, whether or not to go ahead with this measurement service. And of course, for this piece of software not to be ultimately the piece of software that provides a service. The danger of today's prototype becoming tomorrow's live system has always got to be watched out for. Again, software quality management, software quality plans, so helpful in these situations. So we do a bit of a risk analysis and have a matrix and build up these things. And this, oh, sorry, one second.
The time is now 6.
I think the message probably is passed.
Thank you.
Okay, apologies about that, but I had to hit mute there, so that's okay. So there we are. This is a typical example of the outline of the sort of plan that is going to be created at each each one of these software projects. I doubt very much there's anything there that no one out there is going to be unfamiliar with. It's all pretty standard sort of stuff. Documented requirements, user requirements that we ultimately will be used for validating, i.e. have the user requirements been met? Documented functional requirements using for verification. Is this piece of software working correctly? Has that formula been implemented correctly? Are there no nasty mathematical errors sitting there hiding, just waiting to be waiting to jump out at the right moment? This is the kind of, or the wrong moment rather. This is the kind of thing we're talking about. Those requirements need to be traceable. Can it be going from the user requirements to the functional requirements and then ultimately to the piece of code itself? Have reviews taken place? As I was saying earlier, reviews are just so important. So these are the kind of issues that we're looking at in a software quality plan. Right, so I think that's really explained where we've got to as far as our quality management system and the plan and how we do these things. Let's think a little bit now about the benefits of someone externally coming in to have a look at this stuff. Well, TickITplus, I should have said, offers two modes of assessment. There's exploration mode where external assessors come in, usually as part of the ISO 9001 audit more generally, but IT specialists coming in to look at the aspect, or to assess the aspects of the quality system according to the requirements of TickITplus. So that's the approach we use. The external assessors coming in. There's also another approach where staff within the organization trained to be TickITplus practitioners carry out the audits, and we do carry out internal audits, but we carry out these audits in a capacity as proxy TickITplus auditors, and then we provide external auditors the evidence that the requirements of TickITplus have been met. We are not taking that approach at MPL, and I can't really see that happening. External auditors coming in, we like that. It's part of the culture. It's important to us as an NMI that we are seen to be supportive of. We are seen to be following these certification schemes. Not that the confirmation mode would be any less of that, but it's just that external auditors, it's part of the culture. It's what we're used to, and it is a valuable thing, as I'll explain in a minute. So here's the typical sort of approach that an assessment would take. I'm sure this is something you are all familiar with. There will be a lead assessor who will come in and talk to our quality manager, and then various other assessors will liaise with other members of the quality management team, and for example, and also with Indu as software quality lead. And then there will be a sample of projects to be looked at, a good sample of the type of work that's going on, and be speaking to the auditees, following through the processes, taking a look at the quality plan, explaining what the processes are, getting evidence that they are followed, and that's really what it's all about. So as we're saying, we do plenty of internal audits ourselves, and then of course there are the ISO 9001 external audits. In theory, that will be sufficient. So why do we like this extra little bit of impetus that a scheme like TickITplus and an outside view? Why is it important to us? It's the outside. Again, returning to the point, it's the external viewpoint. It's someone from outside coming in, having a look. Personally, from my own point of view, I don't really feel we got our money's worth unless we go away thinking, well, hey, hadn't thought of that before. This is a point that hadn't occurred to us. Just some external way of thinking about things. That is always value. And as you go about the work, the discipline in your own mind, that this someday somebody will be having a look at this, and this is someone who might not be completely familiar with our procedures and not just be second nature to them, to how we do things, so that stuff that's important for explaining for what we do, that you would just automatically assume, as you do once you've been around an organization for a certain amount of time. the things that might not necessarily be easily understandable and presentable to somebody outside the organization, with the benefits of an external assessor, you've got that in the back of your mind, thinking, well, one day. So you've almost got your own mini auditor, your own mini assessor in your head, sitting over your shoulder as you work, saying things like, that should be commented a bit better. Where's the version number? Shouldn't you have checked that into the version control? All that person there sitting over your shoulder, just gently prompting you. And again, returning to the point, this is all so much better when you know that the person who's going to be looking at this is themselves an IT specialist, which is what the sort of schemes like TickITplus guarantee. And a final absolutely key point there, this is a serious matter. This is not playing some silly little game just to get the auditor to give you the certificate and then go away, leave it as, leave things as they were. We've got the certificate now, they've pushed off, as you were, everyone. No. That is just so wrong. Proper audit, ideas that we've got to approach the external opinion, this taken seriously, any non-conformities, observations, things like that addressed and dealt with properly. This is not some silly little dance to keep an auditor happy. I mean, those, and I'm sure there are people out there in that position, and that must be an awful position to be in. And that's absolutely not what it's all about here. Absolutely not. So, final thoughts, nearing the end now. Here's a quick summary of what has changed and what hasn't changed since the predecessor of this this presentation, which we've updated for you. NPL remains absolutely committed to TickITplus as its means of helping ensure best practice in software quality management. And I pressed the wrong button there. But it would be nice to know a little bit more about the future of this scheme, where it's going. As I say, for us, TickITplus is really we are treating it as an up-to-date, modernized, process-based version of Ticket. That's our approach, and not really looking at the other aspects such as IT security. We're looking to other schemes for that sort of things, largely because of customer recognition. So we're looking at things like cyber essentials for our security, because that's what our customers and the people we're looking for. Those are the sorts of schemes they are looking for us to follow. But, for software development, we certainly remain committed to TickITplus. We're continuing with exploration mode. We like the external assessors coming in and having a look at that, and that's important to us. So I don't know, never say never, but I certainly, from where I am, I can't see that it's likely that we'll be switching to confirmation mode. Okay, so what's changed since 2016? Well, as we were saying, the SI has been redefined. Software quality management, more important than ever, always been important, but perhaps there's a step change now. NPL now has the data science department, which is distributed throughout various sites throughout the UK. And we now have, this is very, very important, software quality management, a quality lead, a quality manager for this is now a full-time dedicated role. And Indo, if you'd like to, I'll just mute myself.
Thank you so much, Keith. I think all the slides have been put together very well, and it's like a lot of information has come in. So for me, I have come from a different domain, or probably different background. Lot of experiences, or probably a lot of expertise in development, other things came in. And that's what I'm looking forward to work with the scientist and the whole department as such, to ensure that NPL is giving the best to their customers, the services or the products they are producing with the best quality thing. So probably one of the mission is to ensure that UK has can harness and exploit the digital and data infrastructure and technologies across different platforms. So as Keith has already said, we are moving towards digital NMI. So data is in fact an important fact or attribute in that. So we all work together to deliver with a great quality output. And to ensure the mission, we have put in a lot of quality processes or procedures in place in the quality management system in the whole department, or maybe as an organization wide as well. As NPL, we have different policy statements to attain the mission of NPL. So one important statement would be to provide our customers with the best products and services which meets the requirements of ISO 9001 and TickITplus. So as Keith said, we are going with TickITplus, and there is at the moment nothing decided, or probably in near future decided to change to another scheme or anything of that sort. So we are adhering to TickITplus, and then we'll follow the TickITplus processes, procedures, and then we are going with the exploration mode at the moment. To brief a little bit, our data science department at the moment is following the TickITplus procedures and processes, and probably we are maybe we have to think about whether we have to widen this to other departments as well, because there are the whole lot of other departments of people who are writing the software, who are preparing spreadsheets or other databases, which are in fact the software itself. So that's one point probably we are thinking about, or we have to think about. Yeah. And maybe an ambition at the moment, as we are at the foundation level, I would say it's a long way. We have to think about probably to reach, or probably to mature towards the next level, which would be bronze. I don't know. So it would be a long way at the moment. Yeah, next slide, please, Keith. Yeah. So the approach and strategy at the moment would be to continue with the external audits, the surveillance visits, which is happening every 6 months. So we have a lot of benefits, or we have seen advantages from those external visits, wherein the external auditor comes in, gives in some valuable input, some observations, which are actually some learning experiences for us. So we are going to continue with that strategy. Along with that, we have our internal processes in place, which we do, which is the internal quality audits. So these internal quality audits are little processes which we follow within the data science department to ensure we are following our quality procedures, which is aligned with the QMS. To say that we have our software quality procedure, which is already written, and all the developers or the programmers, we ensure that we'll try to adhere to those policies and processes to the maximum level to deliver the software to the best quality. And the other point approach would be the small improvements, probably from the team, or probably from ourselves, what all small improvements which we can bring in, and then work towards a maturity level. And the other important point I would like to put in is probably the observations or non-conformities that comes out of these external audits, which are like very good points for us to work towards these improvements, or probably towards achieving our next level. The other one is the customer feedback. We have a process in place which gives us a customer feedback from the services or products that goes out of NPL. So those all points are taken into consideration, and that again feeds back to our improvements and then our strategy. So just to summarize, it's I know that it is just a long way, but however, these are the points as an approach or strategy we are at the moment working towards achieving the next level. We don't have any defined time when we are going to do that, but however, these are the approaches, or probably we continue to do what we are doing at the moment to achieve the next level or the maturity level. Yeah, that's it. Maybe.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Right.
That is brilliant.
I've just got a couple of final points. Yeah, I'll be doing for time. Occasionally we get thank you emails. So how about one from the internal audit I did a while ago? There we are. That sums it all up really. It gives me an idea of how others will perceive the way I organize my work and be more presentable for externals. And I'll finish again with another egotistical couple of quotes from the paper we did in 2016. It's important that everybody approaches an audit in the right spirit. If it's a sort of reign of terror, quaking in the boots, then there's something wrong. It's not a consultancy session, but it's an outside point of view, and it's a positive thing. It's a helpful thing. A friendly expert casting an independent eye over a project can be interesting and informative. Is it always the most comfortable experience? No. But if it's a sort of reign of terror thing, then there's something wrong. It's the main benefit, the independent eye, as I said before. And there is always the point, an assessor raising a non-conformity is always, every time, better than a customer raising a complaint. And the bottom line, that's really what it's all about, isn't it? And so there we are, just a few acknowledgements from our colleagues who helped get this presentation together. And that's it. Thank you.